I never imagined that a single act of kindness could alter the course of my life so dramatically. It was a chilly morning when everything changed. The city streets were quiet yet humming with an unspoken tension that foreshadowed the day ahead. I was walking down the cracked sidewalk, my mind burdened by memories of a past I had long tried to forget, when I encountered the most heart-pounding moment of my life. Standing in the middle of a narrow alley, I was confronted by a group of men whose eyes burned with a cold, calculating greed. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my breath coming in shallow gasps as I remembered the promise I had made to myself years ago, to never let the darkness of my past define the light of my future. My name is Michael, and I was once that lost, desperate child wandering the streets, abandoned and hungry. I grew up in a world where survival was the only rule, where kindness was a rare commodity. But one day a stranger's generosity lit a spark within me, a spark that grew into a burning desire to pay forward every ounce of kindness I had ever received. That day I vowed to turn my pain into purpose, to transform the wounds of my past into bridges of hope for others. As I stood there confronted by these men, I knew that the time had come to honor that promise, no matter the cost. The alley was dimly lit by flickering street lamps, their weak glow barely holding back the encroaching shadows. The leader of the group, a cold-eyed man with a jagged scar etched down his cheek, stepped forward and growled, "What do you think you're doing here, Michael? This is our territory now." His voice was low and menacing, sending shivers down my spine. I squared my shoulders, trying to steady the trembling of my hands, and replied, "I'm just here to help a friend, nothing more." Even as I spoke, I knew that words alone would not be enough to diffuse the situation. In that charged moment, memories of my childhood surged forth, of nights spent shivering in abandoned buildings, of meager scraps that barely kept me alive, and of the one kind soul who had once offered me a meal and a promise that someday I would rise above my circumstances. That bittersweet recollection became my shield. "Listen," I continued, my voice trembling, yet resolute. "I've seen what greed and cruelty can do, and I refuse to let that be our fate. We all deserve a chance to rise above our pasts." The group exchanged uncertain glances, and for a heartbeat, I thought my words might reach them. But the scarred man sneered and advanced, his intentions unmistakable. Just then, a firm, commanding voice shattered the tense silence. "Hey, leave him alone!" I turned and saw a tall, imposing figure emerging from the shadows. A man I recognized as Mr. Jacobs, the very same name I had come to associate with stern lectures and overdue rent at a rundown store. Now, however, he stood before me as a mediator, his eyes glistening with a mix of sorrow and hope that resonated deep within me. Mr. Jacobs stepped forward and addressed the group in a calm yet unyielding tone. "I understand you have your reasons, but this isn't the way to settle your differences. There are better paths than extortion and violence." His words, steeped in personal pain and hard-won wisdom, seemed to momentarily soften the hardened expressions of the men. The leader grunted, his gaze flickering between Mr. Jacobs and me, as if weighing the merits of mercy against the allure of power. I felt gratitude and relief surge within me, even as a renewed determination took root. "Thank you, Mr. Jacobs," I said softly, my voice barely audible over the tension that still clung to the air. "Your intervention has given me the strength to stand up for what I believe in." Mr. Jacobs nodded slowly, his eyes meeting mine in a silent exchange of understanding. In that fleeting moment, I realized that every act of kindness, no matter how small, held the power to change destinies. As the confrontation began to dissolve, one of the men, a younger fellow with hesitant eyes, mumbled something about paying for someone's coffee, a phrase that instantly transported me back to the lessons of my youth. I couldn't help but smile through the adrenaline and fear, a smile carrying the weight of every kind gesture that had once saved me. Every act of kindness, I thought, was a seed that, when nurtured, could blossom into something transformative. The men slowly dispersed into the dark, leaving Mr. Jacobs and me bathed in the flickering glow of that narrow alley. I turned to Mr. Jacobs, my heart still hammering, and confessed, "I never imagined that the echoes of my past could come back to shape my future so directly." His smile was gentle, his eyes soft with empathy. Our past may shape us, Michael, but it is our choices that define us. Today, you made a choice that honors your past and lights the way to a brighter future. I could feel the enormity of my journey pulsing through me, a journey that had begun in the depths of despair and was now guiding me toward a destiny brimming with hope, resilience, and redemption. I recalled the countless faces of those who had lifted me when I was drowning in darkness, and I vowed to honor their memory by paying kindness forward, regardless of the challenges ahead. The city around us buzzed with life, its streets teeming with stories of struggle and triumph, of despair and unyielding hope. Walking alongside Mr. Jacobs, the weight of that electrifying encounter slowly lifted from my shoulders, replaced by an unwavering sense of purpose. I knew in my heart that my mission was only beginning. Each step I took was a step toward healing the wounds of a fractured community, toward building a place where compassion could flourish despite the scars of the past. I have always believed that the true measure of a person is not found in the hardships they endure, but in the strength with which they rise above them. That belief had carried me through countless nights of hunger and loneliness, and now it illuminated my path forward. With every beat of my heart, I sensed the collective pulse of a community that, despite its struggles, chose to embrace hope and share its light with those in need. As Mr. Jacobs and I neared a dilapidated storefront on the edge of the neighborhood, I was reminded of the days when I too had faced insurmountable odds, when I had wandered the streets with nothing but a fragile hope and fierce determination. That storefront, a relic of my painful past, was now transforming before my eyes into a beacon of possibility, a community center where the forgotten could find refuge and the broken could begin to heal. Stepping inside, I was greeted by an atmosphere thick with anticipation and raw emotion. Faded murals on the walls whispered stories of struggle and victory, and every corner of the room vibrated with the energy of new beginnings. Here, every smile, every tear, every whispered word of encouragement was a testament to the indomitable human spirit. I took a deep, steadying breath, feeling the pulse of hope reverberate off the worn walls, and knew that this place was more than just a building. It was a living monument to the transformative power of kindness. Amid the soft hum of conversation and laughter, I recognized familiar faces among the gathered crowd. There was Tina, a passionate young journalist whose eyes sparkled with empathy and determination as she captured every moment of our shared struggle. Danny, whose infectious laughter and warm presence reminded us all of the beauty in simple acts of goodwill. And even Lisa, once a skeptic, whose eyes now shone with cautious optimism and quiet strength. Each of them had their own story of hardship and healing, woven together by our common commitment to building something better. I moved through the room, absorbing the myriad emotions that filled the air. A mosaic of hope, sorrow, determination, and love. I could see the relief and joy on the face of an elderly neighbor as she accepted a basket of fresh produce, her trembling hands cradling the promise of a better tomorrow. Every shared glance, every gentle touch was a silent affirmation that we were not alone in our fight against despair. Then, without warning, the doors at the back of the room burst open and a group of people stumbled in, their faces etched with fresh anguish and fear. One gaunt man, his eyes rimmed with desperation, rushed to the front, gasping, "They've taken over the old supply warehouse. They're demanding money for basic food and medicine." The room fell deathly silent as his words sank in, the weight of new tragedy threatening to shatter our hard-won unity. "Who are they?" I managed to ask, my voice barely a whisper, yet heavy with urgency. A determined woman with steely eyes stepped forward and replied, "They call themselves the Shadow Collective. They prey on the vulnerable, exploiting every ounce of hope for their gain." Her words sent a shiver down my spine. But even as fear prickled at the edges of my resolve, I knew we could not allow this darkness to take root. In that charged moment, the atmosphere shifted from cautious optimism to fierce determination. I could see the fear in my friend's eyes, but also an undeniable spark, a refusal to let despair conquer us. I took a deep breath, summoning every bit of courage I possessed, and declared, "We cannot let the Shadow Collective tear us apart. Every act of kindness we've shared is our strength, and together we will stand against this tyranny." The room fell silent as my words echoed through the space, each of us understanding that the battle ahead would test our limits, yet uniting us in our common cause. Mr. Jacobs and Tina exchanged a look of unwavering resolve, silently vowing to fight for our community. I spent the next several hours strategizing with friends, Danny, Lisa, Tina, and several others, mapping out plans to protect our resources and shield the vulnerable from exploitation. Ideas flowed as we discussed community patrols, food drives, and ways to raise awareness among the wider city. Even as the threat of the Shadow Collective loomed large, our collective spirit shone like a beacon in the darkness. Amid the flurry of planning and whispered discussions, I found my thoughts drifting back to the early days of my own journey. I remembered the nights when hunger gnawed at my insides and the cold seeped into my bones, and I recalled the one kind soul who had once given me a meal and a promise that I could rise above my circumstances. Those memories, painful yet powerful, fueled my determination to create a future where no one would have to suffer as I once did. The night wore on, and as the community center slowly emptied, a heavy silence fell over the room. I sat on a worn step outside, gazing up at the star-studded sky, and allowed the events of the day to wash over me. The pain, the fear, the fierce exhilaration of having fought for something greater than ourselves. It all mingled into a bittersweet symphony of emotion. In that quiet, reflective moment, I vowed that I would never let fear dictate my actions. I would always stand for what was right, even when the odds were stacked against us. With dawn's first light, the center came alive once more. There was a renewed sense of purpose as we organized repair crews to mend the damaged water facility and rallied volunteers to help families in need. Even in the midst of devastation, small moments of levity emerged. A shared joke, a tender embrace, a spark of laughter that reminded us of our humanity. Every act of kindness, no matter how seemingly insignificant, became a promise that no one would be abandoned in our community. Then, on a scorching afternoon when the sun blazed overhead, I received news that shook the fragile stability we had fought so hard to build. A rival gang, emboldened by the chaos wrought by the Shadow Collective, had launched a brutal assault on a vital water supply that countless families depended on. The attack was sudden and savage. I could hear the shattering of glass, desperate screams, and the cacophony of chaos as I rushed to the scene. My heart pounded like a war drum as I arrived to find the rival gang in the midst of their assault, their aggression threatening to drown the hope we had painstakingly nurtured. Water was gushing uncontrollably from broken pipes, the facility in disarray as panic spread like wildfire. I could see men, women, and children caught in the turmoil, some struggling to hold back the rising tide, others fleeing in sheer terror. Pushing through the panicked crowd, I shouted, "Hold on, everyone! We can get through this together." My voice, though filled with urgency, carried the weight of a man who had fought against all odds for the sake of his community. In the thick of the chaos, I found myself face to face with a rival whose eyes blazed with fury and despair. "You think you can stop us?" he roared, swinging a crude weapon with reckless abandon. I met his gaze steadily, my voice unwavering despite the pandemonium. "I'm not here to stop you," I said. "I'm here to save every soul in this community." For a heartbeat, our eyes locked, his filled with raw, unfiltered rage, and mine with the burden of every hardship I've endured. In that fleeting moment, I saw not a monster but a mirror reflecting the pain of a life unlived, and I hesitated, wishing I could spare him from the darkness that had consumed his heart. There was no time for mercy, though, as the clash of wills escalated into a desperate struggle. With a swift, practiced move born of years surviving on the fringes, I disarmed him, sending his makeshift weapon clattering to the shattered ground. The crowd around us erupted in a mix of cheers and sobs, a cacophony that celebrated our small victory even as the larger battle raged on. The rival gangs, snarling and retreating, left behind the echoes of their threats, a grim reminder that our fight was far from over. As the day faded into a quiet, bruised evening, I tended to the wounded and comforted those whose lives had been upended by the attack. I sat outside the community center on a cracked step, my eyes fixed on the horizon, where the last vestiges of daylight mingled with the promise of a new dawn. The emotions of the day, the fear, the adrenaline, The fierce, unyielding hope swirled within me like a turbulent river. I recalled the words of a mentor from my darkest days. True strength lies not in the absence of pain, but in the courage to rise above it. With those words echoing in my heart, I vowed to rebuild, to stand firm in the face of adversity, and to ensure that every act of kindness we sowed would bloom into lasting change. Even as the scars of that brutal day remained, each mark served as a reminder of our resilience. Over the next several days, our community rallied together like never before. We organized repair efforts for the water facility, set up makeshift clinics for the injured, and continued our work to distribute food and medicine to those who needed it most. Every act, every smile, and every tear was a testament to the unbreakable bond that held us together. A bond forged in the crucible of hardship and tempered by the unwavering light of compassion. I often reflect on those tumultuous days with a sense of awe at the strength of the human spirit. My journey, marked by countless trials and moments of sheer despair, has taught me that hope is a resource more abundant than we often realize. In the face of exploitation, cruelty, and darkness, the simple act of kindness is revolutionary, a spark that can ignite change, one generous heart at a time. As I continue on this winding path, I know the road ahead will be paved with challenges and moments of doubt. Yet I remain steadfast in my belief that through unity, empathy, and unyielding resolve, we can transform even the bleakest corners of our world into havens of light. Every day as I wander through the familiar streets of my neighborhood, I am reminded that the legacy of kindness is not measured solely by grand gestures, but by the quiet, persistent determination to uplift those around us. I am Michael, a living testament to the power of redemption and the enduring impact of a single kind gesture. My story is but one thread in the vast tapestry of human experience, yet it is a thread that weaves us all together in our shared pursuit of a better tomorrow. Each new chapter of my life is written with the ink of hardship and the vibrant hues of hope, and as I press forward, I hold on to the belief that every tear shed, every moment of pain endured, is a stepping stone toward a future where kindness reigns supreme and the light of hope never fades. I remember that night as if it were yesterday, the rain washing away the remnants of fear and doubt, leaving behind the raw determination that bound us all. In the days that followed, the community center became more than a refuge. It transformed into a living, breathing testament to our collective will. Each morning, I awoke to a city slowly mending its wounds, and every sunset reminded me of the battles fought and the hope that still flickered in even the darkest corners. I took on a role that I never imagined for myself. Having once been the forgotten child of these streets, I now found purpose in guiding others through their own trials. I spent long hours planning with Lisa, Danny, Tina, and Robert, each conversation an intricate dance of strategy, fear, and unwavering hope. Our meetings, often held in the soft glow of twilight at the community center, were filled with heartfelt confessions and determined plans. One evening, as we huddled around a makeshift table, Lisa's voice trembled with both anger and sorrow as she recounted yet another instance of exploitation by the Shadow Collective. "I can't stand by while they take advantage of our neighbors," Lisa said, her eyes glistening with tears of frustration. "Every day I see people losing a part of themselves, and I feel powerless." I reached out and squeezed her hand, feeling her pain and sharing in her resolve. "We have to be stronger than they are," I replied softly. "Our unity is our greatest weapon." The room fell silent for a moment, each of us lost in our own memories of hardship, until Danny spoke up with a spark in his voice that cut through the gloom. "Remember when a simple act of kindness changed everything for me?" Danny recalled, his tone light yet resolute. "That small moment inspired me to believe in a better future. We owe it to ourselves and to every soul in this neighborhood to fight for that future." His words, simple and honest, reawakened the fierce determination within all of us. As the weeks turned into months, our efforts began to bear fruit. We organized food drives, established a volunteer patrol to safeguard vulnerable areas, and even started a community garden that soon blossomed into a vibrant symbol of rebirth. Each small victory, whether it was a repaired window or a smile from a child who had once known only despair, was a step toward healing the deep-seated wounds of our past. Yet, the threat of the Shadow Collective never fully receded. Their presence was felt in the hushed whispers of fear that occasionally swept through our gatherings, in the furtive glances of those who had once been forced to serve them. One bleak evening, as I was closing up the center, the sharp ring of the phone shattered the calm. A voice, desperate and ragged, warned of an impending raid at the old warehouse, a vital storage site for our supplies. My heart pounded as I scrambled to alert the others. The weight of responsibility pressed upon me like 1,000 burdens, but I refused to let fear take hold. We mobilized quickly, our steps echoing down familiar streets as we raced to secure the warehouse. The air was thick with tension, and every shadow seemed to hide a lurking threat. Arriving at the warehouse, we found a group of terrified residents already gathered, their eyes wide with anxiety. Among them was Caroline, whose quiet strength had become a beacon for many. Her voice, though soft, resonated with determination as she addressed the crowd. "We cannot let them strip us of what little we have left," Caroline said, her gaze sweeping over the anxious faces. "This warehouse is more than just a building. It holds our food, our medicine, and the hope for a better tomorrow." Her words united us in a moment of fierce clarity. I stepped forward, my voice steady as I declared, "We stand together, not just as survivors, but as a community that refuses to be broken. Tonight, we protect what is ours, and we send a message to those who wish to divide us. We will not be silenced." The air vibrated with the intensity of our shared resolve, and for a long moment, it felt as if nothing could tear us apart. The raid that followed was swift and chaotic. Under the cover of darkness, members of the Shadow Collective descended upon the warehouse. I found myself face to face with a man whose eyes burned with desperate fury, his body tense and trembling, as if he were both predator and prey. His voice, a guttural snarl, demanded that we surrender our supplies. For a heartbeat, time seemed to slow. I could see the fear and conflict in his eyes, an echo of the struggles that had once tormented me. With a calm that belied the storm raging around us, I said, "I understand your pain, but hurting others won't heal your wounds. There's a better way, a way out of this cycle of despair." For a moment, his grip on his makeshift weapon faltered, and I sensed a crack in his resolve. That moment of hesitation was enough. A chorus of voices rose in defiance, each person drawing strength from our shared conviction. The ensuing clash was not a battle of brute force, but of hearts united in the belief that compassion could overcome cruelty. I remember the sound of fists and the shouts of determination, the cries of pain mingling with the resolute declarations of hope. In the chaos, I saw Robert guiding a small group away from harm, Danny comforting a frightened child, and Tina recording every moment, a living archive of our fight for dignity. When the dust finally settled and the raiders retreated into the night, we gathered amid the wreckage of our hard-won sanctuary. The warehouse was battered, its walls scarred by the struggle, yet its spirit remained unbroken. Standing amidst the debris, I felt a profound mix of exhaustion and triumph. We had defended not just a building, but the very soul of our community. As I looked around at the faces of those who had fought alongside me, I saw determination, sorrow, and above all, an unyielding hope that refused to be extinguished. In the weeks that followed, the warehouse was repaired and fortified, a symbol of our resilience and a testament to the fact that every act of kindness, every stand taken in the face of oppression, mattered. I spent long hours at the center, not just planning for future defenses, but also listening to the stories of my neighbors. I heard about lost loves and shattered dreams, about moments of pure joy that had briefly illuminated even the darkest nights. Each story added a new layer to the tapestry of our shared experience, a mosaic of pain and healing that bound us together. One rainy afternoon, as I walked through the newly restored garden, I encountered a young man named Eric. His eyes, full of a quiet sadness, met mine as he knelt by a row of freshly planted flowers. "I used to think that life was nothing more than a series of losses," Eric confessed, his voice barely audible over the patter of rain. "But seeing what you all have done here how you've turned despair into hope. It makes me believe that maybe, just maybe, I can start over." I knelt beside him, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder, and replied, "Every loss is a lesson, every scar a reminder that you survived. Here, in this garden, we are all given a chance to bloom again." Eric's eyes shone with a fragile light as he absorbed my words, and I knew in that instant that our work was far from over. Even as our community began to heal, the threat of the Shadow Collective continued to lurk in the margins. I spent sleepless nights poring over maps and intel, planning contingencies with Robert and Tina. There were moments when the enormity of our struggle threatened to overwhelm me, when the faces of those we had lost in past skirmishes haunted my dreams. Yet each morning, I awoke with renewed determination, bolstered by the knowledge that every act of kindness, every sacrifice was a step toward a future where darkness could no longer reign. I began to document our journey, not just for the record, but as a message of hope for anyone who might one day find themselves in similar circumstances. I wrote about the terror of that first encounter in the alley, the quiet moments of solidarity in the community center, and the fierce battles fought under stormy skies. My journal became a chronicle of our shared struggle, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming adversity, the human spirit could prevail. One evening, as I sat by a dimly lit lamp in my modest apartment, I received a letter that stirred a deep, bittersweet emotion within me. It was from a benefactor I had long forgotten, a woman whose kindness had once set me on this path. Her words were filled with pride and sorrow, a poignant reminder of the journey I had undertaken. "Michael," the letter read, "I know you carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, but remember that every act of kindness is a light that can never be dimmed. Continue to fight, continue to love, and never forget that you are not alone." Holding that letter close, I felt tears mixed with determination. In that moment, I realized that our mission was not just about survival. It was about honoring every soul that had ever believed in the possibility of a better tomorrow. As the seasons shifted and the city slowly emerged from the grip of winter, our community blossomed in unexpected ways. New faces joined our ranks, survivors seeking refuge, dreamers yearning for a fresh start, and even former members of the Shadow Collective who had finally found the courage to defect. Each newcomer brought their own story of struggle and resilience, weaving themselves into the vibrant fabric of our collective narrative. With every new arrival, the circle of compassion widened, and the promise of a united, thriving community grew ever brighter. I often walked the rebuilt streets at dusk, my heart swelling with a mix of gratitude and awe at the transformation around me. The old storefronts, once symbols of decay, now buzzed with the energy of local businesses, community art, and shared dreams. The sound of children playing echoed in the air, their laughter a sweet counterpoint to the echoes of past sorrows. And through it all, the spirit of kindness, that indomitable force that had sparked my journey, shone like a beacon, guiding us through even the darkest nights. Yet even in this time of renewal, I remained ever vigilant, aware that the shadows could return at any moment. Each day was a delicate balance between hope and the memory of pain, between rebuilding and the threat of regression. But I held on to the belief that every challenge we faced was an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to strengthen the bonds that held our community together. As I continue to lead and serve, I am constantly reminded that the journey of redemption is never truly complete. There are always new battles to fight, new hearts to mend, and new lights to kindle in the vast expanse of human experience. And while the road ahead may be fraught with uncertainty, I find solace in the truth that every act of kindness, every moment of shared vulnerability, is a step toward a future where compassion reigns supreme. I am Michael, and this is my story, a story of pain, perseverance, and the relentless pursuit of hope. With every beat of my heart, I carry the legacy of those who lifted me from the darkness, and with every breath, I strive to pass that light on to others. Our journey continues, and as long as there is even a single spark of kindness in this world, we will never truly be lost. As the seasons turned and the chill of Celsius winter finally gave way to a gentle spring, I began to notice a remarkable change in our neighborhood. The dark collective, the very embodiment of despair and exploitation, had started to crumble from within. I remember the day clearly. I was walking past the community center when I saw a small group of former members huddled near the freshly painted mural. Their faces, once hardened by bitterness and anger, now bore expressions of uncertainty and, surprisingly, hope. One of them, a lean man with tired eyes who had once led their misdeeds with a cruel determination, stepped forward hesitantly. His voice trembled as he said, "Michael, I want to make things right. I know we did terrible things, but I want to work, to be part of something good." In that moment, my heart swelled with a mixture of disbelief and cautious optimism. I had always believed that no one was beyond redemption, and here was a man, scarred by his past actions, reaching out for a new beginning. Over the following weeks, more members of the Dark Collective emerged from the shadows. They approached our meetings at the community center, not as enemies, but as souls seeking a second chance. One evening, during a gathering filled with soft chatter and the warm glow of lanterns, Lisa, who had once been so skeptical, addressed the room with gentle firmness. "We all know that our past is written in pain, but it doesn't have to define our future. If you're truly ready to change, if you're willing to work and rebuild, then our community will welcome you as brothers and sisters." The atmosphere was charged with emotion. There were tears and hesitant smiles, and even a few awkward, tentative handshakes as old adversaries tried to forge new bonds. I spent countless hours working side by side with these reformed individuals. I helped mend broken fences, repair the dilapidated warehouse that once served as the target of violent raids, and even assisted in setting up new workshops where everyone could learn valuable skills. During one long day under the open sky, as the sun dipped low and cast a golden hue over our efforts, I sat with Danny and a couple of former Dark Collective members who had taken on jobs as construction workers. Danny looked over, his eyes reflecting a deep-seated hope, and said, "It feels strange, doesn't it? To see people we once feared now building with us, laying bricks instead of causing chaos." One of the men, his hands rough and stained with concrete, nodded slowly. "I never imagined I'd be here, working, sweating, and laughing alongside you all. I feel like I'm finally a part of something that matters." The transformation was not without its struggles. There were moments of tension, as old habits and the ghosts of a violent past would sometimes resurface. On a particularly windy afternoon, as I was overseeing the installation of new windows at the community center, I witnessed a heated argument between two reform members. Their voices were raised, echoing memories of past conflicts, and for a brief moment, it seemed as if the old darkness might reclaim its grip. I stepped in, my voice calm but resolute. "Remember why you came here. We chose to leave behind the life of fear and destruction. Every day we build something new. We honor our past by proving that change is possible." The argument subsided, and slowly, a mutual understanding replaced the tension. In that instance, I realized that the road to redemption was not a straight path. It was filled with setbacks and hard lessons, but each step forward was a victory in itself. As time passed, our community began to flourish like never before. The warehouse, once a battleground, was transformed into a bustling workshop and meeting hall where people of all backgrounds, old adversaries and longtime neighbors alike, came together to share ideas and work towards a common goal. A sense of purpose permeated the air. The energy of hard-working hands and compassionate hearts was palpable. Even the local businesses took notice. Mr. Jacobs, whose once stern demeanor had softened into one of gentle encouragement, started employing several of the reform workers. "These are good, honest people," he would say with a proud smile as he welcomed them into his shop. "Everyone deserves a chance to prove themselves." I continued to document every step of our journey in my journal. Each entry was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the smallest act of kindness could spark a transformation so profound that it altered the course of many lives. Tina, ever the passionate storyteller, used her recordings to share our progress with the wider city, and soon our neighborhood became a beacon of hope for others who had once been lost in the shadows. One evening, as we gathered for a community feast in the newly established park, a place that symbolized our collective rebirth, a familiar face emerged from the crowd. It was the former leader of the Dark Collective, now dressed in simple work clothes. his eyes filled with a sincere humility that belied his past standing before the assembled crowd. He spoke in a voice that was steady and heartfelt. "I stand before you not as the man I once was, but as someone who has seen the error of his ways. I was lost in a world of anger and despair, but thanks to your unwavering belief in redemption, I have found a new path. I promise to work every day to earn back your trust and to contribute to this community as a good, honest worker." The room erupted in applause, a sound that mingled with laughter, tears, and the soft hum of renewed hope. That night, as I walked home under a sky studded with stars, I reflected on the incredible journey we had undertaken. The dark collective, once a symbol of the city's deepest wounds, had been transformed by the relentless power of kindness and unity. Its members, having cast off the chains of their former lives, now embraced the dignity of honest labor and the satisfaction of building a better tomorrow. I felt a deep gratitude for every challenge and every moment of doubt, for they had led us to this place of healing and renewal. I knew that our work was far from over. The road to lasting change was always under construction. But as I look back on the transformation of those who once dwelled in darkness, I realized that we had accomplished something extraordinary. We had proven that no matter how deep the scars, the human heart could mend, and even the most troubled souls could become good workers, contributing their strength, their skills, and their compassion to a community reborn in hope. In the soft glow of dawn, as I prepared for another day of building and healing, I smiled to myself, knowing that our shared journey had just begun. The darkness had indeed dispersed, replaced by the steady light of unity and the promise of a future where every hand, no matter its past, could help shape a brighter, more compassionate world. The lesson here is that every act of kindness, no matter how small, has the power to change lives and spread hope. When we are willing to forgive, seek renewal, and work together to build our community, old wounds will gradually heal, and those who once lived in darkness can become valuable workers, contributing to a compassionate and vibrant society. I'd love to hear your stories. Have you ever experienced or witnessed an act of kindness that changed someone's life? Please share your thoughts and feelings, and let's spread this positive message together.